So we're talking about finding that motivation when it's extremely difficult to get started. And if you've ever been in this place before, it's terrible. It's just it's just an awful place to be in. And today we're hopefully going to shed some light. So if you are somebody who is feeling a little bit down, feeling a little bit out of it, feeling like you can't just get that quick start, today we're going to speak about hopefully give you a little bit of just advice, a little bit of just personal experience in terms of what I personally do when I do stuff like that. And when that happens to me, usually everything starts to fall apart. And I was actually listening to a podcast recently by Alex Hormozy, and he was talking about how many times somebody will go through something difficult, and because they get themselves down, it ends up affecting something else. So he was saying how something happens in somebody's personal life, and then it starts to affect them on their professional life, or and then it starts to affect their relationships, and it starts to affect them in so many different areas. And what we have to realize is that if we can start to really decompartmentalize all these different things that are happening to us and really just keep it in that one area, and sometimes we might not have an answer for a while, but recognize, hey, how can we really just keep this in its own little force field to allow itself to not spread to anything else? And if we could start to do that, and we can start to keep that in, so then we have the strategy and hopefully the time that we can start to affect other areas of our lives. Because what's interesting about this is that just as on the negative side of things, how when one thing goes wrong, other dominoes start to fall and other things start to happen in our lives. So the same thing on the opposite end in terms of like our positive life. If we start to do positive things in our life, that could also help affect those things that might be negative, help build those areas of our life. And that's what we have to understand. So if we start getting into this negative routine, all that's going to happen is that more dominoes are going to fall. However, if we could start to just pause and keep ourselves in this little container and then let other areas of our life start to do well, so then all of a sudden, other things can start to happen. And it's one of the reasons why I love the energy audit. So, if you're new to my content, one of the things that a coach by the name of Rich Litvin talks about is this idea called the energy audit. And the basic idea of an energy audit is that when somebody's stressed out, when somebody's going through something difficult, really what they should do is they should get a piece of paper, ideally some type of journal or whatnot, and they should write down or make a T chart, which is really just a big capital or lowercase t, just making a T, and you're making two columns. And what you want to do is, on one hand, you want to put all the things that get you stressed out in life and all the things that give you energy in life. And pretty much what you're going to see is you're going to start to see different things happening in your life. And it's interesting because in our minds, these things are going on like all the time, and we don't realize how much there really is going on. And usually what happens, I know my personal experience, is that when I start to write all the things that are taking energy away from me, all the things that are stressing me out, it's usually only a handful of things. And that's the amazing part. It's like, oh my gosh, it's only like 3-4 things that I just keep circulating in my mind. And they could be big things, and usually they are big things that they're taking up that much energy. But what we then have to realize is that then we can start to attack them. We can start to see it on paper. It's not just this thing in our mind. It's something on the paper where we can say, okay, what's going on here? How long is this really going to last? Is this going to be something, happens like when people are like in school? It's like, okay, I have a test that I have to take or my midterm or final, something that's going to be in 3 weeks. And no matter what, whether I like it or not, it's over. I have a job interview that's coming up, and regardless whether I like it or not, the job interview is going to be over. And just really trying to focus on different areas of our life. And if we could start to recognize that could be the thing that starts to switch for us, because there are so many people that get so stuck on what's going on negatively towards them. And what we have to do is we have to really be able to pull ourselves out to really make sure that we're taking advantage of the stuff that we want to be taking advantage of. Because for so many people, they just get down and they really just take everything else out of their life. They just knock everything else down. And what we have to realize is that we have the ability to really get started, to move forward, and to really take advantage of all the things that are happening in our lives. And if we can start to focus and say, hey, what's going on here? How can I just split this thing up? Then we can start to realize, you know what? I'm going to just attack this one thing by doing this, breaking down the steps or some other strategies that we're going to share tonight. Another thing that is really beneficial about the energy audit is like you see all the things that are going well, the things that are like happening in your life. And it's ironic and like unfortunate and annoying how we have so many good things happening in our life, and then we have one thing that's negative, and then all of a sudden like everything else gets swamped by the negativity. And that's a muscle that's built. And naturally, our bodies want to protect us. So that thing that is coming, that is piercing out at us, that is so negative, our bodies are saying, hey, we got to really focus on this thing. Our ego is saying, we got to focus on this thing, because guess what? We really need to protect ourselves from this. This one thing is a really big issue, but when it, in reality, it might not be. And what we have to realize is that we have to overcome our egos. We have to overcome that urge, that feeling, that temptation to give into that feeling. Because on the one hand, there's like this weird, like dopamine hit we get whenever we do that. It's the similar dopamine hit to get when you're about to say something negative about somebody and you want to say it and like you're not sure if it's like it's mean, it's not mean, but it's about your friend, it's behind their back, and all of a sudden like you end up saying it. And there's like this weird feeling you get of like a sensation, like a positive thing, but then like right after you feel like garbage. And what we have to realize about ourselves is that the more we can overcome that temptation, that feeling, then the more it is that we're going to be able to not feel like garbage. And that is something that I think so many people have to be able to try to work on it on themselves. And that's why it's really important. Like whether you're talking behind your back, friend's back, or whether you're, going through something personally, like that's the same action. It's the same emotion that we're using. And what we have to try to do is we have to try to protect ourselves. And once we could do that, that could be something that could start to shift so many different things. So when it does come to our situations in our own personal life, what we have to realize is that we have this ability where we have to start to move forward and really take advantage of all the different things that are happening in our lives. And it starts by really separating everything out. Separate the good, separate what doesn't seem so good, and recognize, okay, what's going on here? How is it that I can start to move forward when it comes to the things that I want to be doing in my life? But when it really comes to this finding of the motivation aspect, when it's hard to get started, so there's really two doors that we can walk through. And I think people fall into both of these when they have this feeling of like, I'm just so not motivated. Number one is the feeling of like, I've tried a million times, nothing's working, I'm done. And that happens a lot with entrepreneurs. It happens with me plenty of times as in my entrepreneur journey, just because like you're trying and this and that doesn't work. And you watch an inspiring video and you say, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden you try to do it. You end up not doing it. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it's not working. And this, maybe I'm just not cut out for it. And we have all this self-doubt that we talk ourselves down with. And what we have to realize is that we have this ability where we have to start to move forward and realize, okay, you know what? This is like the hard part. This is the thing that most people give up on. It was interesting. I have like currently right now, maybe when you're listening to this, there's more, but currently right now I have just under 700 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And there was this new app that came out, or a new website that came out that by Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is, I think, believe now the number one YouTuber in the world, starting I think a couple of days ago. Whatever. But Mr. Beast was talking about, or his new app tells you like what your ranking is. And I checked my ranking and stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's only like 4,500 people in front of me. I'm like, wow, that's pretty sweet. Like out of all the people in the world who have YouTube channels, I'm number 4,500. And I'm like, I'm just getting started. Like this is so exciting. But what I realized is that so many people don't even get started. That was like the biggest shock to me. It's like, oh my gosh, like literally nobody's doing it. Like I'm just getting started, and like it's been a long time, and I'm excited about this journey. But what we have to realize is that we have to stay committed. We have to realize what is really going on here, and just by starting, that could be something that could be so helpful when it comes to like the places and the parts that we want to be going to. So when you are feeling like you can't commit, or when you feel you can't be motivated to move forward with starting to really take that action, what we really have to realize is that that's part of it. That's not the feeling is part of it. You don't have to feel down. It's just the expectation and the difficulty and the moving forward and trying to get past all these different ideas. That's part of it. Our emotions and how we react, that depends on the person. And some people are totally fine because they have the right expectations. And when you have the right expectations, there's no reason why you're going to be upset, because you realize, okay, for the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, it's going to be rough for me. But guess what? After that, I'm going to be able to make it. On the other hand, if you set the wrong expectations where I need to be extremely successful right now, I'm only going to try for a week and this and that, then guess what? Of course you're going to be upset, because it's not supposed to be that easy. And it just shows you what happens, how many people are really successful. I'm sure there are more than 4,500 people before me who were like, I want to really grow a successful YouTube channel and really try it out and do this and that. Like, I'm sure, but for some reason they're not doing it, or maybe they are. They just haven't found their success, which is great. And then maybe they're right behind me, whatever it is. But like, I have so much more to go. And I just think it's really important to just have that perspective to say, hey, I'm playing this for the long game. Things are going to go well, and over time, like we're going to make this thing work. We're going to figure it out. What we also have to realize is that the other door that we have to try to figure out is the one where you actually succeeded. Like you've seen the success, and then all of a sudden, like you get knocked down. And I think that's like a totally different button that we have to press, because for certain people, having success, getting the high, seeing all the good in it, feeling invincible at some points, feeling like you've done it, and then all of a sudden, like you get knocked down, and it's like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? And what's interesting is that they actually say, over the long, I forgot where I heard this from, but over the long run, if you have professional athletes, so the one that are the higher ranking athletes in college don't do as well in the professional sports. And this is really fascinating. It really makes sense because in college, the ones who were the best athletes, so they were the best in their school and their conference and in the league even. And what ends up happening is that they end up putting a lot of work in, but they're already the best in college, so they're not used to working as hard as maybe somebody who was like a number 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 player on their team, which probably is like number 200 or 300 in the league. And what we have to start to realize is that if we can start to understand that there's certain people who are working hard constantly and they're learning the muscle to work hard, right? They're training themselves to become somebody who works hard. It's not about them being the number one, but it's being the person who's going to continuously try to become better at the sport or whatever it is that you're looking to do. When they transition into professional sports, they already have that mindset of, I have to continue working. This is what I do, as opposed to somebody who is a top prospect. They a lot of times end up not working as hard. And it's why so many number 1, number 2, number 3 picks in any end of the drafts of sports, they don't perform well on that level, because maybe the first year they do well and this and that. And then over time, they realize that like the competition is really tough. And the thing that's going to make you better than everybody else is the constant training and crafting your sport. And what we have to realize is that work is going to be something that is so important. So if you are somebody who went through something and got knocked down, but we have to realize it's not what you got that made you who you were. It's who you became. And what we have to focus on is like, oh my gosh, I'm the somebody who is able to succeed at X, Y, and Z. I'm somebody who is able to succeed in business, in a relationship, to start a non-for-profit, to do these things. Because if you can define yourself as that, then all of a sudden we're focusing on the glass that's half full and not the part that's half empty. And for so many people, they're so easily focused on the half empty part. And what we have to do is we really have to train ourselves to become somebody who can start to focus on the half full part. And if we can start to do that, I'm telling you, that's a massive game changer when it comes to the success that we want. If we can do that is going to change so much in our lives, because so many people around us, whether it's on social media, it's in our circle, whether it's at home, whatever it is, there's so much pressure on us to perform. There's so much pressure on us to be a certain way, to become a certain person. And what we have to realize is that it's not about that. It's about us being the best that we can be. It's about us doing the stuff that we want to be doing. And that is something that we have to realize. And a great way to do it is, number 1, get a wins journal. Okay, a wins journal, notes in your phone, something that like you could look at that you're proud of yourself of. This is not like an arrogance thing of like making a shrine for yourself, but this is something that we're going to build our self-esteem and our self-confidence, our self-worth by showing, hey, you know what? I did X, Y, and Z. That's pretty cool. I'm really proud of myself. I'm not better than anybody else, but I'm proud of myself that I was able to be disciplined enough to do X, Y, and Z. And to remind ourselves, because we're so easily, constructive or negative. I was just saying negative to ourselves when it comes to beating ourselves up. But we have to realize that we have to be so much more positive. I saw this stat: for every 8 times you say, for every 1 time you say no to your kid, you have to say yes, or like something positive, like 8 times or something like that. And the reason is because we're so naturally saying no. It's like I have my 1-year-old right now. He's doing this, like, don't do that, and don't touch that, and don't go over there, and this and that. And I'm constantly saying no to the kid, and I feel bad, but and I gotta practice, and I gotta work on myself. But I realize that, oh my gosh, this is something that I really need to focus on. And if we don't focus on that, that could be something that really could start to really hurt my people around us that we love and that we care about, and especially ourselves, that we're so negative to ourselves that every little thing throughout our day we're judging ourselves. Why did I do this? Why didn't I do that? Oh, that happened. I should have said this, or I should have done that. And what we have to realize is that we have to build up this story for ourselves so we can become that person. And once we do that, that could be something that could start to shift it so much. And what we have to also realize is that not about when we are down, because when we're down, and we're out for the count, and it's not something we like. It's not something, we don't want to be there. All we want to do is really just stay in bed and, watch Netflix and really just eat ice cream or pizza or ziti or whatever it is that you like. And what we have to realize is that when we're down, the goal isn't to get back to 100%. We're running on 7% or 8%. What we have to realize is we got to get to 12% or 13%. That's the goal. So many times we put so much pressure on ourselves that we're like, oh, I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. I'm not doing my whole daily routine that, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and then I go work out and then I do meditation and I journal and then I this and that. And it's like 7 o'clock and then I'm starting my day and all this amazing stuff. It's like, no. It's like, let's just get up before 10 o'clock. How about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just take our foot off the pedal for a second, put it more on the brake, slow down a little bit, and just say to ourselves, you know what? How can I just get 5% better? What can I do today that's going to, if I do this one thing, I call it a win, something small. And for so many people, they get so focused on the bigger picture that they can't get themselves out of it. What we have to realize is that we have to put ourselves moving forward to allow ourselves to see that success. And if we don't, what ends up happening is we put so much pressure on ourselves to be somewhere else, to be somebody else. And what ends up happening is that it doesn't help us. We don't end up succeeding. And that is something that we don't want to be doing. We want to try to get out of this as quickly as possible, not stay in it longer. And we're just elongating that process. And if we could just recognize, hey, you know what? This is part of the growth. This is all part of it. This is all who we're going to become. This is our story. Yeah, it's terrible right now. But guess what? I'm going to be back one day, hopefully one day soon. I'm going to be doing my thing, be inspiring other people, making that impact. And once we do that, then we have that ability to start to move forward. I think that could be something that could really start to shift. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments down below. Be happy to help. All the best. Peace out.